All right, all right, all right. Welcome, you loyal listeners, to another episode of Agents Influence Podcast. Conversations with who? Jason Cass. Appreciate you being here. Agents Influence Podcast is where we take your ideas and your thoughts and we tell the world what you have to say. And here I am with Mr. Greg Head. Now, a lot of you guys out there, you're thinking to yourself, I don't know who this cat is. That's okay, because he's not from the insurance industry. But you follow and listen to me because I like to follow and listen to the people who have their finger on the pulse. And I believe that Greg does. Now, that's up for debate. Greg might say, Jason, you're making me bigger than I am. But I follow Greg. I read his posts and the way that he thinks is a little bit different. Now, he's not in this insurance game like we are. So he's more of the software guy and he sees these. But if you follow him out there and you're like, hey, before I listen to this, I want to know who he is, go look him up, Greg Head, just like you would say, how it would be spelled, and look him up and look at some of the posts that he talks about where he kind of pushes back on some of the conventional thinking, and not only the conventional, but also some of the stuff that's being done today. And I love how he sometimes throws a question in it. So, as you all loyal listeners know, this is InsurTech Week, which is better than Shark Week. And why we are doing this is, once again, every week, every podcast that goes out on this network, all 13 shows that go out have to do with InsurTech. And so I have brought you some people who are CEOs in InsurTech firms. I brought you some VCs, but I wanted to bring you someone like Greg, I think, who has a more neutral mind on some of the stuff that we're going through. And it's going to really, really help you get a little bit more grounded and expand your base on some of the InsurTech or some of the software or some of the things that are going on in every industry, let alone just the insurance industry. So, Greg Head, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you, sir.
Hey, Jason, I'm glad to be here. That's the first time I've been introduced as a cat, some kind of cool cat, out there. So I'm happy to be here and share some ideas. Yeah, people can find out what I've been talking about on LinkedIn just look up my name, Greg Head, Head. Funny how I have to spell it after all these years. I just have one of those names.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You are right about that. Let me ask you this. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
3 questions. You an iPhone, you a Droid user?
iPhone.
iPhone. That surprises me about you, Greg. I thought you might have been a Droid user. I really did. What was the? Don't take it personally. I'm just joking. I'm a Droid user. That's a question I ask all the time. So what's the last app you downloaded, Greg?
Let's see. It was probably. I'll just look it up here. Check my app brain here. I finally got on board with Calm, the meditation app,
Okay.
right? For all of us
You like it?
freakishly. Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm an old software guy, and I've been in the entrepreneurial, fast-moving pace world for all these years. So, I'm trying to chill once in a while. So, yeah, that's about it there.
Okay. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
I love to win. And I come from the entrepreneurial side, so there's a lot of not simple winning and losing, right? So, you're experimenting and so forth. So, winning and creating is part of the game, and losing, we write it off as we go along and throw it off the train like
That's
it
right.
never
And,
happened.
and sometimes that can help us win next time. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah. Greg, 2 things in the world we believe led you to where you are here at AI. This is what we believe. Doesn't mean that there's more, but we believe skill or luck. What was a bigger factor in your life to where you are now?
Yeah, I think there are 2 sides of the same coin, but I come from the skill side. I built companies, software companies. I invest in software companies, and I think entrepreneurs change the world, and crazy people create the future. And so it's a little bit of timing that goes along with that, but it's at the beginning of everything that exists today is a crazy person who made it happen.
Damn right about
And
that. Come on.
99% of the people are not creating things. They're just showing up like I do in many parts of my life. I just show
Right.
up and use Calm and or whatever, use my iPhone or whatever. But everything that exists, whether it's Edwardsville or St. Louis or, like whatever. Like
Right.
there was a crazy person at the beginning.
There was that, and that everybody called crazy and told him that
Yes.
he or she was an idiot. So
Yeah.
you're right about that.
Yeah. And their mom always said, stop doing that. And, and they said, I got to do it. And it's not obvious. So, yeah. So that's how I view the world, is that people have an influence on it.
Greg, so that we can relate a little bit more to you, take us back to high school, diapers, whenever you want, and bring us forward in about 2 to 3
goodness.
minutes that tell us how you got where you are now.
Well, let's see if I could do the 3-minute challenge here. I'm from the Chicago area, went to school at Iowa, and came back to Chicago in '87 to look for a job. And a friend of mine said, hey, work with me at this software retail store when software was just starting as a business. It was very misfit, very for the geeks, very in the corners. Not everybody had computers. And the software store was called Egghead Software. So I was Greg Head from Egghead. I'll give you that gift, Jason. But, and then I'll fast forward. So I was selling software, retail software. I was going crazy. I love sales. I fell in love with all the software. It was the beginning of that was my time. That was my luck. I joined at the beginning of the packaged software industry, and it's been booming ever since. So that's total luck there. And I joined a little software company that made the best-selling software for salespeople in the 90s called ACT, A-C-T, exclamation point software. Anybody who's older than 35 or 40 would remember it from those days. It was a top 20 product of the 90s. And we sold that to Symantec, and we created another company and bought it back and, sold that again. So I was in the CRM industry 3 times with ACT, SalesLogix, and then Infusionsoft, which is now called Keep. KEAP software. And so I've been growing software companies from crazy, silly startup when in early markets where nobody's doing it, but someday everybody will be doing it.
Right.
And now I help the crazy founders of software companies all over the world who are growing software companies, some in InsurTech, but mostly in just everything that is booming and growing. So that's, now I advise and consult and invest in early stage software companies. So I'm that old and I'm still kicking.
So you also have Gregslist.com, not Craigslist, but Gregslist. Tell us what that is.
Well, I'm still hyperactive after all these years, and I help a ton of founders. And in Phoenix, where I was for 23 years, after I left the last company that I grew to 100 million, I just started helping all my friends. And then who were running software companies. And they were all complaining that there's not enough talent, investors, and Phoenix isn't a software town. And I was helping them all, and I said, I've helped 100 founders. There's 100 software companies here. Nobody believed me. And all the investors and talent was chasing me around. And I was Mr. Connector guy doing the, hey, you ought to talk to this guy, and who should I talk to? And, all that stuff, hyperactive. And finally, I just said, hey, why don't I just publish the list? People were literally asking for my list. Can you share that list of yours, Greg? And so I literally published it and curated my updated list of all the software companies in Phoenix, because I was watching the pitch competitions. I knew all the founders. Every month I'd add 15. Curated it for 4 years myself. And it became Gregslist, which is now a really big deal in Dallas, where I live now. For the last 2 years, and Phoenix and a few other cities. So it's a free resource to help the crazy founders get connected to the resources, talent, investors, experts to help them grow. So these are the, creating the future and creating prosperity in our future communities. And they're complaining they can't get the help. So I'm connecting the help. So 10,000 people a month go to Gregslist and find where to work and who to invest in and find other software companies in their neighborhoods. We got 10 cities now, and we'll see where that goes. So that's one of my projects. And Gregslist.com.
And I love that. And Greg, how much this has changed. No matter what industry we're talking in, we can talk specifically about insurance, but no matter where we're at, it's this was all this investing and all this software and starting these startups was at a very high level. And in the insurance industry specifically, it's now come down all the way into agency owners are now creating their own software and going and getting financial backing. I mean, the little guy on the corner now is creating this stuff. And this is so different, isn't it? You've got the history to say that. I mean, this to me, I'm only 43. This to me has only been around in this insurance industry. I don't know about the rest of it. In the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, to where it's really just not only is it amplified, but it's also allowed the smaller guy to get involved. Am I wrong or right by seeing it that way, Greg?
Yeah, there's two things going on there, Jason. I think you're very right. The software industry has grown since the late 80s, right? We had the software in a box and then software on servers and now software in the cloud. And for the most part, that or all those early phases, it was software for every kind of company, right? Salesforce.com software and Google and Facebook, right? It wasn't industry specific and so forth. So software has been growing and growing for years, but a lot of industries like insurance, finance, education, you basically go deep into any big industry and you realize people are still, they're not using all this modern software. It isn't built for them yet. They're still using pen and paper, construction software, right? And so in all of those areas, software is now coming in very hard. I'd say it's one of the biggest trends in software in the last 5 years is that it's going deep into all the industries where they're like, we're ordering something on Amazon in, very sophisticated. We could just about order a car in a couple clicks. And then we go to insurance and they're saying, please fax everything. And it takes about a month. And, so consumers, or on one side of driving this, is saying, anybody under 30 doesn't know how to use the post office or a fax machine. So they're kind of like, yeah, I don't get this. Can you please come to the modern age? And there's so much efficiency inside the insurance business and technology. So the boom is happening in banking called fintech, in construction, in ed tech, education, and of course in the insurance industry, which of course, it's like one of the most massive businesses on earth, 4 trillion in revenues globally. So it's not surprising. So I would say it matches what's happening in the software trends as a whole. The second thing is, in the 90s, we were making all this old software. We actually kind of had to raise venture capital money just to build software because it was so expensive and you need a team of 20 people to make Windows software and, just to build something. But now people can kind of do it in their basement. An insurance agent who knows how to program or has a brother or can hire somebody in India or the Ukraine or something can build something if they're smart for a few $100,000. Right? That spits out of their business or something like that. So there's an explosion of software that isn't just big companies, big funding, the big name. There's an explosion of lots of little software companies. Some of those actually grow up quite big, and some of them, stay little and don't play the Silicon Valley billion-dollar unicorn headline grabbing funding game. So there's kind of a myth that I've been talking about lately that the software industry is just these IPOs and all these billion-dollar fundings and funding. There's 80% of the software companies aren't gobbling up tons of venture capital investment funding, and they're growing out of businesses that are, and they're self-funding it, and they're growing up there. So, and some of that's in InsurTech. So some things in insurance tech take a lot of investment to move there, and a lot of things don't take a lot of investment. And so software businesses are a lot easier to create these days and a lot easier to sell before they're absolutely huge. So those are two trends in general that are happening in the software industry.
Indie tech. So we have independent insurance agents. We call it that indie tech, and the fact that insurance agents, especially owners, we make good money. So we do have a lot of disposable income to say, you know what, I do have some money to go hire my brother-in-law or someone in the Ukraine or whatever and get a good product. And it's interesting how a lot of those agents, they still want to sell their insurance. They still want to run their agency. They just have this idea that they've used in their agency that's worked, and hey, maybe that can work for somebody else. And so you are right. It's popping up everywhere. It really, truly is. And I remember around 2013, 2014, Greg, I would get phone calls as an agency owner, 1-2 a day. And it would be these, I'll call them high school or college kids, probably 24, 22, 20. hey,
Yep.
I just graduated and all I'm doing is calling around, specifically in the insurance industry, to find out what are your biggest problems. What are the biggest headaches you have? Where are the biggest
Hmm.
inefficiencies you have? And I got these, and I mean, all of us agents would be like, where has this come from? Well, then a year or two later, here we come within 2016, 2017, we come with this InsurTech. And it's really
Right.
crazy because in the insurance world, the InsurTechs were, we don't need the agents as the distribution model. We'll be able to figure it out on our own. Just like Progressive thought in the mid 2000s, whenever they
Right.
decided they didn't need agents, they were going to go online. And that lasted for about 2 or 3 years. And they realized they ran out of people. Now we're seeing it to where the InsurTech carriers are starting to come back now and starting to say, wait a minute, we do need you agents. And so now we're actually going to create insurance companies that are actually going to be able to help manage some of this stuff. So it's
Yeah.
really, really been wild. But here's my question for you, Greg. They say, now these numbers are not exact, but they're pretty close. From 2017 to like 2020, the industry took on $4 billion. InsurTech took on $4 billion in capital money. In 20 to 21, they took on $4.2 billion in the first half. And
Yeah.
in the third quarter, they've taken on $6.4 billion. So, I mean, those are remarkably unbelievable quick numbers. Where does it end? Where's the cap out here? Just so real quick, Greg, just hold on. Louis listeners, Greg, when you read his writings, he challenges the status quo about always thinking that you have to be some unicorn or you have to be getting a lot of capital in order to be successful. And that's kind of where I'm going here with this, Greg. What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, so it says that the insurance business is large, and about 5 years ago, 2015, Silicon Valley was starting to aim their guns at what are all the old industries that don't have technologies, and then they would like real estate. Another one, residential real estate. Commercial. So they were starting to aim at that, saying they don't even know what's going on. We're just going to make software and take them out, disintermediate, right? So that was the Silicon Valley little story. And what they've learned, of course, is insurance is a really big and deep industry, and it isn't that simple. Sorry, and that the insurance experts combined with technology experts are the ones who are finding the deep leverage and creating businesses. But when you say so there's a lot of it just says there's a lot of money coming into InsurTech. The wave is upon us. Right. And just like there was a wave of social media 10 years ago, this is the wave of InsurTech. It's happening. It isn't going to stop. And there are big companies getting created. It isn't just a bunch of little guys and they're all staying little and it's a bunch of experiments, little startups. Some are getting bigger. What happens with Silicon Valley funding, you think it's, well, gosh, where could $4 billion worth of funding go? Like that must be 10,000 companies or something like that. It's actually very disproportional. Half of it goes to a couple dozen companies that used to go public when they hit 100 million in revenue. Now they're not. Silicon Valley money is mostly investing. The big numbers of Silicon Valley money, investment, venture capital, goes into later rounds at bigger companies, right? Where they're putting 200, 300, 400 million on billion-dollar, quote, unicorn valuations. Remember, we used to say unicorns because a private software company with $1 billion valuation was so rare, right? Now there's 1,000 of them. So a lot of that is big money going into fast-growing companies that are highly valued. And there's a lot of little experiments going out there as well. Into little efficiently funded companies that are creating niche solutions and all kinds of other experiments. So, the boom, we see it in banking, fintech, and payments, right? It's just an explosion. And there's going to be big billion-dollar companies out there. Whether it disrupts the old insurance providers and the models and the pricing, like Uber did to taxis, right? They didn't touch the old business model. They just disrupted it completely. It all remains to be seen. But as far as I can tell, it's a good thing. The consumer experience in insurance is getting better. AI and machine learning, all this super intelligence with the data is making things more efficient. So maybe there'll be better pricing and better matching and all of that. And for agents who did the same, and agency owners who did the same kind of independent or captive type selling for all these years, that model's changing. Whether it's going direct or whatever, I don't know. But like, there's all kinds of technology there. So there's a lot going on in the insurance tech business in all kinds of angles. So part of the sport of startups and investing is placing bets on what software disruption is going to be, grow the fastest, be the biggest, change things the most. And it's really hard to tell. So it's, that's why it's called venture investing. It isn't just banking. It's not a sure bet. Most of it doesn't work, by the way. Most of all this investing in early stage companies, startups, is placing bets, and they don't go very far. The horse doesn't finish the race.
Right. Yeah, I know. And that's what I think a lot of people fail to forget there about that. Do you think that do you think that having money is a bigger factor in your success, or having a strong team at the head of that company? What makes these companies strong and some don't, besides just luck?
Yeah, well, the luck is timing. Timing to be like, if somebody tried to do InsurTech 10 years ago, the industry wasn't ready for it. Technology wasn't that, right?
Good
So,
point.
and then if they wait 10 years, it's going to be too late or whatever. So there's a gold rush happening right now. So let's call that timing.
Okay.
But after that, it's if there is a big market opportunity, like when I started in the software industry, salespeople didn't have computers, and I was making sales software, like a very small. Most people didn't have computers. Salespeople especially didn't have computers because they were people-oriented people running around town. And even salespeople who sold computers didn't have computers, but someday they would, and we made sales software, and it all grew from there. So that was good timing, and it was a really big market. So there's a lot of big markets there in InsurTech. Some things are niche, and they'll be small, little features and little things, but there's a lot of big markets there, which is part of what's required to be successful with startups. And the second is the team. So there's no proprietary way to advertise on Facebook that nobody else can do, and everybody's using the same software coding technology. So, so the team is what makes the magic happen in a market, to survive long enough to run the experiments, to get ahead faster. So, sometimes that could be helped by a pile of venture investment. We raised $10 million or something like that. Sometimes that could be helped, but sometimes it doesn't help. Sometimes you've got to run the experiments and take the time to do it, and the too much funding, starts the race too early. So over 50% of companies that announce big funding don't make it to the big prize. They're not the ones we we read about going public, right, and all the rest of that. So money doesn't say it's definitely going to be successful. It's a little bit of a myth, and oftentimes it isn't. But it can help you with team, and it can help you raise. In the end, though, just about everything, if you imagine a section of the market and there's a software for that section of the market in InsurTech, there's going to be 1, 2, or 3 big players in the future. And that's what venture investors are investing on, is the horse, win, place, or show. And it's win and place, like Uber and Lyft, Ford and Chevy, Coke and Pepsi, Android and iPhone, right? Everybody can make all these things in the world, but our brain only can handle 2, right?
True. It's very true.
Yeah. As smart as we are and as much technology is there, everybody can do it. We say, gosh, what else would you use besides Uber and Lyft? In front of a big crowd, people say, I don't know. I don't even know one. So there's a horse race to be the best, and that's where most of the capital goes when the horse race is on and everybody's trying to get big really fast.
And Greg, another problem that we have with it, and every industry is obviously probably running into this. So I think really, with us being retail, different than the big banking blocks, different than the big educational institutions. Looking at us down on the real retail, Main Street agents and businesses, It's so frustrating. These new companies that come along, they have the funding, they have the great product, they have the team, they start doing really well, they start gaining market share. Agents are finally saying, oh my gosh, there's finally something new that allows me to create this customer relationship or experience or sales process, whatever it could be.
Right.
I've got it. We go and we get it and we buy it and we move all of our processes around
Oh
and
my
get
goodness.
everything,
Right.
and then they get bought. And
Yes.
it's like, son of a bitch. And so then we go and we repeat this cycle again and they get bought. And you repeat this
But
cycle again.
so what happens after they get bought? Like, so you're talking to the founder, and then you're talking to the team members, and it's all cool. You know the gang, and you send in feature requests, and they build it, right? All that startup stuff, and then they get bought. But sometimes that works, right?
No, sometimes it
So
does, but a lot of times,
yeah.
Greg, they get rid of the damn thing. Because like in the
Ah,
insurance industry, yeah. So especially in the AMS CRM market, and there's other
I
markets
know.
too. But what they'll do is the applied, the vertiphores, they just buy them and then they set them on the shelf. And basically agents are kind of sit there left to go, man. So it seems like every time there's a new piece of product, a new piece of innovation, and to be honest with you, Greg, being on the outside in, that is one of the most expensive time wasters of all of our of
Of
when we are
course.
looking at this InsurTech, very, very
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. And, the AMS business hasn't changed in so many years, and everybody overpays for this kind of software that isn't that helpful. And so it's kind of I don't know, it's a monopoly. There's, a half a dozen of these
Hmm.
companies that don't want change. So they'll buy somebody just to not disrupt them. Right.
Correct.
So you need somebody to go in and solve the whole problem, create the modern one. Right. It's like Uber says, oh, we'll help the taxi industry, and then get bought by a taxi monopoly in New York or something like that. No, they said we're going to change the whole thing. So we need
Correct.
somebody to change the whole thing. And in Phoenix, there's a great team facing a big market at Better Agency
That's
there,
right.
who's building
Will
great
Shaw and Nicholas
software. Yeah,
Ayers, those are my dudes.
yeah, absolutely. Love them. And full disclosure, I'm an investor there. They are friends of mine.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
Yeah.
speaking of not starting with a ton of money, right? Some really software savvy CRM technology experts teamed up with a gang of insurance agency owner insurance,
Hmm.
P&C guys that really, that really knew the business deeply, and they're creating some major disruption. So, yeah,
Yeah.
their goal is not to just go to sleep on the shelf at, Vertipore or something someday. They want to change
But at
the
the end
world
of the
is for
day,
insurance agencies. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Greg, Vertifor walks in and says, "Hey, we're going to give you 300 million." I'd personally fly to Phoenix and strangle Will Shaw if he didn't freaking sell. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that's one of those things. I love him, and
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. It's just it's such a frustrating thing. And then there's another company out there called Courtier. And they
Yeah.
are actually they're redoing the way they do small business, which is something
Mm.
that is not very. We can't make a lot of money on it as business owners. It's just they're the
Right.
premium so small and it's tough. And they're making a way that it's going to that I think they're going to really make some headway. But all of us agents the other day in this mastermind call we're on, Greg, we're all sitting there going, yeah, right. They're going to get good. And in 2 years, Hartford's going to come along and say, you're not stealing our small business. They're going to buy them. They might incorporate some of the tools, but they're an old legacy system and it's just easier just to put them to bed for a while. This is what us agents see, and this is what us agency owners are getting very frustrated about when it comes to this stuff. Sometimes I wish we would just let these places be, at least let them grow up a little bit more. But the big guys have so much money and so much power. And to everybody who's listening, including you, Hartford company execs, I'm not just saying you, I was giving you as an example. It might be somebody else. But I just I don't know, man. It's a real frustrating thing right now for us. And we'll get through it. It's making our industry better. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. But in the meantime, got a lot of pain points there. A lot of pain points.
Yeah. Well, and insurance agency owners who are looking at technologies, there's a lot of new technologies coming, a lot of startups, a lot of experiments. Not all those companies are going to make it. Not all those ideas or software is good. they have to look to somebody like you to, give them some call the shots. This is something you need. These are the serious players that can do it, and because they need help to sort through, because it's like a new frontier, right? And there's a lot of experimentation, and they need a little guidance to get through that. And so insurance agency owners are going to have to spend a little time playing with the early software, reading the blogs. We're not in a late market where you show up and you just get X, Y, and Z, and that's what it is, right? We're in a disruptive time. That's what it was 10 years ago. You show up and you get one of the AMSs, right? And if you want to do CRM, you got one of the generic CRMs, but they didn't really work for insurance agencies. You had to pay a lot to make it kind of work.
Yeah.
And all of that. So that's why Better Agency was created. And now, they're solving the real AMS problem. There should be a tool that's super productive for servicing your clients, automatically selling new things without, too much input, and driving new business. Yeah, it's really cool. So there's a lot of guidance that's needed in this new world. The opportunity for innovators, meaning those that kind of pay attention to new technology in the insurance agency business, they have a lot of leverage to be there first and grow fastest. It's like when Google search came out and everybody started using it. If you were a lawyer in Kansas City who understood search engine optimization and online marketing and everything, you were the 1 out of 100, and you were first to do it. You kind of were first to the frontier and showed up at the top of the list, and your business tripled, and all of a sudden you kind of won that war, and nobody else can kind of catch you now. So there's some advantages that can play out. It doesn't always work. Technology isn't always magic, but there's some advantages in the insurance agency for those that play the new technology game very well and grow really fast.
Well, Greg, any last minute things you want to say? This is exactly what I wanted to hear from you. I just wanted to get your your take on this, and congratulations on being an investor with Better Agency. Those are good friends of mine. They have the best. I tell Will, I was eating with him in Tampa Bay about a month ago, and I told him, I said, I think of all of the AMS people out there, I said, I think you're less likely to sell. And he started laughing, and he said, why do you think that, Jason? I said, because he has a core passion for making the industry better. Right. He's not happy with, he told me his exact words were, if somebody wants to, I'll fight them for my thoughts on this industry. And I mean, he was literally saying he'll fight them. He's really that passionate about what he does until 300 million gets put in front of him. But at the end of the day, I'm just saying that jokingly, Will, but it just has to do with, you have to, it's just realistic. And so, good people. I'm glad you're associated with them, Greg. Anything you want to say wrapping up?
Well, I would say there's a general idea. One of the myths of the software industry is that it takes people out of the equation, salespeople, right? Service people and the rest. And so a lot of people show up in the software industry saying, oh, I want to create software that does it all. And so we don't have to have people in the equation.
True.
But that's kind of a myth, because something complicated, it's easy to order whatever, a hamburger delivery or a pizza delivery without talking to somebody. That's pretty nice, right? Renting a car. But buying insurance and doing other things like that, there will always be people involved. And the people will have finally the leverage of technology, like Steve Jobs' bicycle analogy, right? We were pretty fast humans, relatively by running, but when we got the bicycle, we were the fastest on Earth. It was the most efficient travel ever. So I see a lot of empowerment for savvy salespeople in the world. Salespeople are not going away. Insurance isn't going away. It's going to change. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be pretty exciting.
Well, as long as we have people like you following along and keep pushing the issue, where can people find your podcast at? We have a bunch of software tech geeks here. Where do we find you more at, Greg?
You can find the podcast at DallasSoftwarePodcast.com. I'm keeping track of all the founders I'm meeting here in the Dallas area in the software ecosystem. They can go to gregslist.com to see a list of software companies in 10 cities. And I collect them all, not just the top 10 we all hear about. And they can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. Find me at Greg Head on LinkedIn.
Greg Head. There you go. They can find you there. Appreciate your time, man, Greg. This has been really, really fun. I really, really, truly do enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Hey, to all you loyal listeners, you know what I do. I do what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Cass. He's Head. We're out.